To start this delicious Thrive apple pie, we want to reconstitute these Granny Smith apples. If you can avoid eating all of them before they go in the pie, that would be helpful. But first, take a little bit of cinnamon and dash on the apples, a little bit of nutmeg on the apples. The secret ingredient is our Thrive Orchard Apple Drink Mix. Go ahead and sprinkle that on the apples. Also, we're going to take sugar, Thrive white sugar, and sprinkle on the apples as well, and just a little bit of salt. Once you get all those mixed in like that, we're going to pour 2 1/4 cups of water. And at that time, you want to just stir this in and let this all reconstitute this one big happy bowl of apple love. After about 10 minutes, the apples will be soft. All the flavors will have come together, and we'll be able to make and put together our sauce. Now that these apples have been reconstituted, we're going to strain the juice off of this, reserving the juice. The reason why I wanted to soak the apples in this wonderful juice is because this juice, this orchard apple drink mix, the sugar, the cinnamon, the nutmeg, a little pinch of salt, is going to be part of the saucy, awesome nature of this wonderful, delicious pie. So we're just going to take that out and reserve it so that we can saute these apples. Now we're going to go ahead and add a couple tablespoons of butter. Don't be shy, don't be shy, get to it. We're going to melt this butter in this pan. Now that you have your butter melted and the pan is hot, you want to take these delicious Granny Smith Thrive apples and add them right into that butter. You can hear the sizzle, the saute. You can hear these apples in this pot having a major party. You just want to stir this up, get a little bit of flavor and color on those, and then go ahead, after they've had a chance to develop some flavor, go ahead and add that wonderful juice that they reconstituted in. Okay? Meanwhile, we're going to add just a little bit of water to some cornstarch. While this is coming up to a simmer, let's talk crust. Now, my grandmother made a great pie crust. Flaky, just really nice, buttery, rich crust. And I hope that you find the same thing in this pie crust, as it's going to be flaky and rich and buttery. First thing you want to do is take Thrive flour and sift that flour through a sieve or a strainer. Add your salt, Thrive salt, and Thrive sugar. And sifting, what that does is that makes a really nice light and gives you some of that flake. And also, if there is any impurities or maybe problems or pieces of something in your flour, you can also catch those and get rid of that. Okay? So once you get your flour mixed into there, next you're going to take your butter, and I like to do it in the blender to really chop it up fine. But you're going to take your butter, and you're going to just mince this butter up, just ever so. It doesn't have to be too chopped up because it's going to go in a blender. But you want to make sure it's good and cold. Colder the butter, the better. And we're also going to use ice water. And the reason why you want to use ice water is to keep this butter nice and cold. But then I use the blender to make sure the butter distributes itself nicely into the dough itself. Okay? Our apples are doing wonderful over here. They're simmering now, and they've come up, and I think we've had enough time to develop the flavors of these apples and bring everything together. So now we're going to go ahead and add our thickening agent, which is that cornstarch and a little bit of water, to the pie. And you can use clear gel and some other thickeners out there on the market that would work good too. But most of us have a little cornstarch in the pantry. Now that it's come back up and thickened a little bit, you can go ahead and add the rest of the butter, okay, to this. And what you want to do is when you add that butter, you want to just swirl this around and emulsify that butter into this sauce. And if you cook it too long, it could break. Once you get most of that butter melted, Then it's time to add the blueberries. And we didn't reconstitute these blueberries. These are completely dry. So go ahead and add the blueberries. And the reason why I wanted to add Thrive blueberries, not just for flavor and the wonderful pop of blueberries, but also it helps give it a little bit of color. Helps the pie have a little bit more character, and it just looks really, really nice. So if you keep stirring, it's just going to go more and more blue from the blueberries. And so at this time, I take this and I put it in the fridge and cool this for a while. And let that kind of get cool and let it get set up. Meanwhile, we'll finish making our dough. So once you have the butter for the pie dough, just cut the butter up a little bit, and then we're going to just blend this in the blender with about half of our flour. Now what you can see here has happened is this flour has mixed with that butter. Now the butter is all completely blended in. I have found that that's the easiest way to get great pie dough. Now you have really small, wonderful little butter pieces in there, okay? Then the other half of the flour that I've pre-sifted, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to use Thrive shortening. So now I'm going to take the rest of our flour that I've pre-sifted and go ahead and add that right in there. So now we've got the Thrive shortening powder and the flour in here again, and we're going to rock and roll. And again, you can see what the nice texture, that fat, when it mixes in with that flour, it's just awesome. That's the only way to work that dough. Now, we're ready to mix our cold water. So you take ice water, that's the important thing, and you put the ice water in, and you mix this entirely and make a nice dough out of it. I've transferred our pie dough into a larger bowl that I'm able to mix this up in. You want to add that water, ice water, until it's received it. Remember, the ice water keeps it cold and keeps that butter together. Okay, once it's all blended, you can take it onto your bench and knead it just a few times until it comes together. You don't really want to develop the dough much. Okay? But the secret about a good pie dough is refrigeration. So now you got to put it in the fridge. Once you get it blended, you can knead it a few times. You can cut it into different balls to meet your pie needs, and then just put it in the fridge, let it rest. Oftentimes, you can grab a piece of plastic wrap. So I usually just ball out my pie dough to about the size I need. Wrap it up, and then refrigerate. Okay? So that's how you rock and roll with pie dough. I have some pre-chilled, ready to go. So now let's talk about how to roll this out. First thing you want to do is just get a surface that's nice and floured. I'm going to cut this in half. Half for the top of the pie and half for the bottom of the pie. Okay, and then we just roll this out. And because it's cold, it's going to be a little bit hard, but it kind of lets loose after a little while. And just to kind of measure, and I take a knife and I'll go about 1/4 inch out from the side of the pie pan. Now I have my pie pan here. This pie pan is buttered. I like to butter it. And then we just go ahead and sit this in. And I just kind of stretch this pie crust out to make sure it goes over the edge. And then I take a fork. You want to just put a fork in here. This allows the crust to breathe. Now we're going to take our filling that we've had in the refrigerator and cooled slightly. And just as long as it takes to roll the dough out is really all you need to cool it. You don't need to cool it tons. But if you keep it hot, it may have a tendency to overcook while this whole thing's in the oven. Go ahead and spread your apple filling all through there like so, and set that to the side. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to roll out the top. Once you have your top rolled out and cut to go on top of the pie, there's a couple things you want to do. You want to put a couple air holes in here, and you can just easily cut out some little triangle shapes. Okay. And then you want to take a little bit of egg wash and just do the rim of this. Put this baby on like that, make sure that side's up. And then what we want to do is come along and seal the top layer of the crust like so. Okay? Then we want to just crimp this like this. That's all you need. So now you have a nice little fluted edge. And then you take your egg wash. You're going to want to egg wash this whole top. Now you're pretty much ready to bake. There is one more little secret touch I like. I sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon and sugar all over the top of this crust. Okay? Our apple pie is now ready to go in the oven. We're going to bake the apple pie for about 40 minutes in a 350-degree oven, and after it comes out, we're going to enjoy a little Thrive treat. Now that our apple pie has had a chance to cool, of course out of the oven, smelled the whole room up and everybody's going crazy, it's time to dig in. What we want to do is just cut our pie. You can easily get 8 slices out of this. Get yourself out a delicious piece, like so. Take some ice cream if you want it all a mode. And just like that, our Thrive berries and our apples come alive. Hope you enjoy this tasty dessert, this apple pie, whether it's for the holidays or anytime. This is Chef Todd Leonard from the Thrive Kitchen. Enjoy this tasty apple pie.